Join the staff in terms of helping undergraduate programs, and you've taught various modules. It'd be wonderful to share some of that.
I was teaching undergraduate modules. I was teaching Page to Stage.
Yes.
The first year module.
Which is very popular and very big, isn't it?
I had 56 students this year,
right.
so yeah, it's a very popular module, and it's another of this module that really offers a like half practical, half theoretical approach to the content, which is some good feedback that I received about the module. So this one, and then I've done a third year module, 19th century Italian opera.
Yes.
And then I've participated in other modules, for example, opera from Handel to Weber. So I just gave a guest lecture.
You're still fresh as well. If you're closer to your days as a student, or if you're still a student in the capacity of doing the PhD, you are able to relate to your student cohort, your student audience, and your module so much better. It must have been very interesting for you to touch upon areas of your research through your teaching, and particularly in opera from Handel to Weber and 19th century Italian opera, that is either overlapping of your research or at least not too far away.
My PhD was very heavily so based on primary sources, on our archival sources, so on the kind of things you don't find in literature, not yet.
No.
Hello everybody, my name is Alessandra and I'm currently doing a PhD in historical musicology, and today I'd like to tell you a little more about my project of research. So as you can see, my proposed dissertation title is Milan 1790-1802, Music, Society and Politics in the City of Two Regimes. So what I'm focusing on is the relationship between musical repertoires and political changes in the period that spans from the last years of the Habsburg rule to the proclamation of the Italian Republic in 1802 in Milan, which is the capital of Lombardy and is widely regarded as one of the main venues in the world for operatic performances. In opera from Handel to Weber, I could give a guest lecture, and I structured the guest lecture around findings and features of my research. And in 19th century Italian opera, that was of course the module was a lot more structured, so I didn't have the same freedom, but I still tried to, of course, add some of my personal experience to that. And I think that the students appreciated that, because I'm
sure.
Of course, you do have a particular interest in your object of research, and this shows through.
But when you're mentioning findings, I'd imagine that's a very practical piece of advice to students in terms of learning how to use resources, primary sources you mentioned, how they can make that work within, say, an assignment. And also, because of the broader issues of your PhD, looking at music as a political tool, as a piece of propaganda, that would also lend itself to various things that you would have taught, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think that my main contribution is that I really tried to use my specific object of research, which was, Milan, music and political propaganda in Milan at the turn of, between the end of the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th century. So I tried to use that in order to make students more aware of the links between music and society, for example.
I see.
Music and political agenda, political propaganda. For example, in a module like 19th century Italian opera, where you have to go through the whole of the 19th century in a very limited amount of time.
Of course,
I think that students always tend to focus on the actual repertoire and on the mainstream operas and composers. And sometimes the aspect of the society, of the theatrical practices, like how the repertoire is really connected to another world of, how people went to the theater, what the music could represent apart from, the plots and then the commissions of the opera, how they were performed, in which city, what was the situation, to make this social and political
lenses, if you want, more important. And I think it's because a lot of students are, you know, performers, for example, or of course, you know, they're very heavily music based, and
there's an employability agenda there almost, where they can understand how is music consumed by a public, what is the function of music, what is the function of opera, and we have, as you know, with the business of music, placements in the Welsh National Opera, where students can work both in an administrative sense, a management sense even as well, and that link between modules and what you've just been describing with your own research, illuminating the modules you teach, and then the students thinking about work, jobs, that is really crucial. Alessandra, you came back to Cardiff, you finished your MA at Milan. What were the reasons for pursuing PhD research here?
So, there were many reasons. First of all, like during my Erasmus year here, I had taken the module taught by the member of staff who would then become my PhD supervisor, main supervisor, who is Professor Jones, David Wynne Jones. And we had talked and we had started thinking about possible research projects. And he had an area of expertise that was not present in Milan, or not with that specific focus that he had. So I was interested, first of all, in having the possibility to work with him.
His area of speciality obviously was elsewhere, but in terms of the political agendas and how there was a social role for music and how you were going to dissect that, he'd done that simply in other places other than Milan.
Yeah, also because he has been working for many years on Vienna and Habsburgs.
Of course, yes.
And because Milan was part of so Milan was governed by the Habsburgs. He was he is very knowledgeable about the patronage and the treatment of music by the member of the Habsburg dynasty. So that was very useful.
So you must have appreciated the fact that you were taking almost him further afield. So you were taking him from Vienna.
Because he has of course always worked on the central, so on Vienna as the center, the headquarters of the court, whereas Milan was a case of a province of the empire. So it was, of course, it had similarities, but it also had its own local context. So I think he has found my work interesting, I hope.
Yes.
So he was, of course, one of the main reasons. Of course, I had really liked the possibilities that the faculty, the School of Music, offered in terms of the student community, which was very nice. The musical possibilities, which, as I said, were really low or absent in Milan. So I could sing, of course, I could keep singing with the BBC Wales.
Oh, right.
I could take part in the student ensembles, and I could really be a part of the musical community in the school and in Cardiff in general, which is really good.